Hi, everyone. We'll get started in just a moment. Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar, Getting Ready to Get Ready, Procuring AI for Procurement. I'm your host, Julia McElroy. Thank you for spending time with us today. We're glad you're here. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to explain the format of today's webinar. All attendees are muted. You can enter comments or questions in the chat or Q&A box. Questions will be addressed during the Q&A session after the presentation. At the close of today's webinar, you'll be asked to complete a very brief survey. Your feedback is valuable to us at NASPO, so thank you. Today's presentation is good for 1 hour of continuing education. To receive your certificate, please complete the survey following the presentation. With that, I'm pleased to introduce today's speakers. We're honored to have Kelly Martini, Chief Procurement Officer, and Harrison McCrae, Director of Emerging Technologies from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we have Dr. Carrie Miller and Dr. Giselle Waters. They're co-founders of the AI Procurement Lab. NASPO is excited to have them with us today. So Carrie, let's begin with you. When it comes to getting ready to get ready, where should an organization begin?
Well, Julie, first of all, thank you for having us. This is such a great question. First of all, maybe we should define what getting ready to get ready actually means. So as Giselle and I have been looking around the universe, trying to figure this thing out called AI, we've noticed some patterns. And so we're seeing organizations do a couple of things. One is there's this low level of adoption by individuals trying to, do their thing, right? They're just trying to get by and use ChatGPT to write the policy and make it quicker for themselves. And so that's one level of adoption. Another level of adoption are organizations that are like, yes, get the AI in here, let's do it. And so that's another type of adoption where they're using AI for the intended purposes of the AI. And I say that specifically because that gets me to the getting ready to get ready. There is a group of organizations who recognize you really can't use the good AI, the juicy AI that's really going to get you to the good stuff unless you are ready. And so getting ready to get ready means you have to have your right people in place. You have to have your right data has to be in pretty good shape for whatever AI it is you're going to be about to adopt. You should have some good policies in place. How should we use this? Maybe you should have some people trained. They should be a little bit AI literate. So getting ready to get ready is putting all of those foundational building blocks in place. So I think where you start, I always start with education. So being schooled up, skilled up is where because you can't really write those policies. You can't really decide how you're going to do that data piece unless you kind of know some things about how AI works, where the harms are. So I start with education. So that's where I would start.
That's great. That makes a lot of sense. So how can procurement, IT, and HR teams collaborate to build a strong AI foundation?
Giselle, do you want to elaborate on that one?
Sure. So because demand and buy-in are really outstripping process, those three core teams, as you said, IT, HR, and procurement, need to take stock, take inventory, understand capacity, and build a foundation of where are we now today in order to proceed to something. Because the risk calculus for the acquisition of AI, when it's outstripping your protocols, your processes, your understanding of potential benefit versus risk, your understanding of how is it that we define AI use cases specifically, that's going to be a problem way down the line. It already is with the amount of lawsuits that have been filed already. So first, it's taking stock to build the foundation of where your people, process, and protocols are.
It sounds like preparation is key, right, to all of this, to having a really successful, I know that seems simplistic, but at the same time, you have to be prepared and also understand what your mission is. Like, what are you trying to accomplish as an organization? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what are some practical ways agencies can build momentum in these early stages of AI readiness?
So for me, this is such a good question because it reminds me of when I was first starting my career. And we won't say how long ago that was, but it was a while ago. And it was right around that time where we were all like, oh my gosh, 2000's coming and the zeros are going to ruin everything and we have to plant. And so we were all putting new tech in. There were all these legacy systems and we're trying to figure it out. There was too much to do and too few resources. Oh, and lo and behold, here we are again. There's too much to do and there's too few resources. These are basic blocking and tackling business problems at their core, right? We kind of forget that because it's AI and it's really shiny and fun. But if we look at it as a basic business problem, you would say, well, what are our business problems that we need to solve? So maybe we start with legitimate business problems and we put all those on a list and we investigate them and we say, oh, these 3 are the biggest ones. Okay, so now we've prioritized the business problems. And then you say, would AI really solve those? Sometimes AI might, and sometimes maybe just someone needs fired, or maybe the cloud provider is messing stuff up. Like it may or may not be AI. If it is AI, then you can move out on, and I'll let Giselle go into like the real blocking and tackling of how procurement becomes, and honest to God, procurement is the rubber on the road. It is where your entire governance strategy hits the pavement. Everything you've done in strategy, every policy you've made, every promise, commitment, all of that comes into procurement to come together. That's where you decide, don't let the bad stuff in. We're going to do this right.
Me?
Giselle?
Yeah, so I mean, procurement as a function, as a mechanism for gaining innovation in efficiency or gaining in capacity to expand our ROI on the organization. Deciding what to buy, how to buy it. Obviously, procurement is that front door. So every function in procurement now, as you define the use case, we spent a lot of time at IEEE building when we were doing the standard. I'll tell the audience just 2 seconds, but Carrie and I built a standard for the procurement of AI and automated decision systems at IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, and it has developed standards in technology and IT for eons, for decades. And when we were doing that, this front section, this first 2 processes, which were problem definition process and the solicitation preparation process, those 2 aspects of, a generic model of procurement, we spent a lot of time, months and months, potentially almost a year, refining how is it that we adapt all of those generic procurement approaches and stages for AI questions, for AI specific problem notioning, iterating on what that use case is. And I would say the whole standard was really, we do not want to replace procurement functions. We are augmenting, strengthening, modifying, and really aggregating diligence, which needs to be there because it was all founded on de-risking, on trying to understand the risk aspects of AI, as especially if it would impact large populations, vulnerable populations, from either public procurements or otherwise. And so procurement functions don't change. They simply need to be refined and strengthened. And so we've spent a lot of time in the past 4 years really better understanding how to simply become, Navy SEALs at the procurement functions, because you are now buying a category of product that has a higher risk to people and things. So I don't know if that helps as well. Did I miss anything, Carrie? No.
And Carrie, thank you, Giselle. And Carrie, thank you for putting those links in the chat. That's really beneficial.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll get no argument from this group on procurement is where the rubber hits the road. Yes. And we're all about very much understanding that, and also understanding that AI will augment what we do and not replace or anything else, but augment. It'll be another tool. So thank you. So Kelly, I understand that you in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania have a new pilot project. Would you please tell us about it?
I will. I have to introduce Harrison to do that because Harrison does all the heavy lift and is making us look amazing. And I'm so grateful that they brought in procurement from the beginning. So Harrison, did you want to talk a little bit about your role in the Commonwealth and how our governor's administration has really encouraged this work across the Commonwealth?
Happy to do so. And great to be here. Again, Harrison McRae, Director of Emerging Technologies with the Commonwealth. In my role, I'm really focused on our AI adoption and implementation, which over, for many folks who have worked with AI for a long time, AI is not this new topic in most recent years, but really with everything going on with generative AI and the ability to have such powerful tools that are so readily available to a wide range of users has introduced a lot of new questions and dynamics across a range of domains, procurement definitely being one of them. Back in 2023, as we were starting to really wrap our arms around this moment and these tools and what they were looking like, we launched a pilot program with OpenAI where we had about 150 licenses that we procured through a emerging technology pilot procurement vehicle we have here at the Commonwealth to allow us to better explore and engage with what does it really look like to have our staff use these tools? What are the resources they need? What are the uses they're finding and the risks that they're identifying? And how can we use that information to inform all of our approach to this work in the future? I think a very, particularly helpful aspect of this that I think really relates to procurement and something that Dr. Miller was saying before is that, there can sometimes be a little bit of this chicken oven or the egg around trying to procure the right AI solution. And I think for many of our teams, it's also difficult to know what that right solution is until they also have a chance to experiment and try and start to explore. AI is one of these umbrella terms that right now means a lot of different functionalities and capabilities. And giving our staff tools and hearing the types of questions that they had and being able to provide resources, information to address and allow for better scoping was one of the goals of this pilot, and is something that's really set us up for success going forward. So I took us a little off course, but to kind of close the loop on this pilot, again, it was with OpenAI. It ran for about a year, and it was really this hand-in-hand project of trying to give people these tools and understand what worked and what didn't work for them in the Commonwealth.
And speaking as one of the guinea pigs of that, a colleague and I here at Procurement got a ChatGPT license, and Harrison's group would follow up every month and ask us how we were using it, right? So when they were thinking about overall how they wanted to spec out their project, they were doing that user research in real time with this pilot, which I think is so great and really allowed the Commonwealth to figure out, okay, what tool do we want based on how folks are using it and what they really need the tool to do. So that's great. Like I said, they did the work for procurement.
It's fantastic that you all reached out to each other and understood that this collaboration, to be successful with this pilot, you needed a strong collaboration. So that's wonderful. Kelly, for you or Harrison, what are some lessons learned from the pilot?
Sure, I'll talk the boring procurement stuff, and then I'll let Harrison talk about like the actual cool use cases, okay? So again, Harrison's team did all that work to spec it out, right? And they're the expert. Like we here at Procurement, we're the expert in procuring things. We are not the expert in AI. So very happy that we had that expert here in our state to inform what the Commonwealth really needs. Sometimes the best of procurement is an avoided procurement. So for example, our Microsoft licenses come with Copilot. No procurement needed. That is already something that we get through our license. Another thing is thinking about the vehicle you want to use to purchase this. So very early on, we had this conversation of, do we want to do a single or a multiple award? And initially we thought, oh, multiple award, you know, the technology was changing so quickly. Multiple award would allow us to use all these different technologies. Oh, but the terms and conditions and all those things. So we kind of quickly pivoted away from that to it actually is best to do a finite number of tools rather than trying to do a big multiple award. And again, Harrison brought up so importantly the pilot, right? So we actually do have, separate from what Harrison did, we actually do have an IT demo pilot policy here in the Commonwealth. So when folks do want to use or try out a new technology, we do have a policy that allows them to do that. I don't know that you folks, did we use that in this case, Harrison, that IT demo? Yeah, there we go, see? This is why we need the people who do the work, and I forget what pilots we approve. But there you go. So that allowed them, that flexibility really allowed them to be able to try out a number of things without us spending and you know, so much time and spinning our wheels on a procurement when we might not like that end tool or know what we really need. So Harrison, do you want to talk a little bit more about what that pilot told us and how we're using AI here?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to you know, reiterate, I think there's a lot of, when we've talked to different teams about kind of the learnings of this pilot, we have types of learnings that are very AI user focused, right? Like what were our staff actually telling us about using these tools? But a lot of this work also has been understanding where and how this technology should collaborate with our procurement offices, our HR offices, our legal offices. So much of software these days is, you know, introducing new terms or new features that are engaging AI functionality. And, you know, we'll see if that levels off, you know, over time or not. But a lot of the learnings of the pilot were not just from our staff using it, but also our staff and our team understanding as AI becomes more pervasive, what are the muscles we need to build within our procurement, our legal, our HR, our operational offices to ensure that we're setting any software use up for success for our users so that they don't have to be the ones to, you know, mediate, you know, responsible use. How can we set some of those structures up for them in place from the onset? That being said, part of the fun of this work and the joy was really getting to hear from so much of our staff throughout the entire year. So unfortunately, I can't say a nice round 600, but we had 599 feedback surveys and focus groups that we did with staff over the course of the year. We had 14 different agencies participate. We had union covered employees participate as well. So while we're never going to capture, you know, the breadth of all 80,000 staff at the Commonwealth through 150, we still had a wide range of users and experience. And I think a key aspect of this range was that about half of our group in our OpenAI pilot had never used an AI tool before. So again, this work kicked off, the actual first users were in 2024, and generative AI has scaled so much in the past couple of years. And even then, you know, half of our group had never used an AI tool. And so we weren't just doing a pilot with our folks who were kind of the power users, the people who were the most excited coming in. A few of the biggest takeaways we had from the work was, and we have a full pilot report out that's public, and I can drop a link in the chat shortly. But one was that, you know, on the whole, our staff really reported they enjoyed using these tools. You know, we definitely expected some amount of friction and, you know, adoption barriers, and there were those, but about 85% of our staff reported a positive or very positive experience across the course of the year using these tools. And this included folks who, you know, on the beginning of the pilot, when they said they wanted to participate, put in their kind of participation form that they were very skeptical of AI, and that's part of why they wanted to be part of this work. We had staff report they saved about 95 minutes per day on the days they used ChatGPT. Now, with any sort of, you know, self-reported time saving metric, you know, I wouldn't take that as like a prescriptive number that teams should take home, but much more, it was still a very, helpful directional benchmark for us on whether our staff perceived that they were saving time on key projects with this work. And resoundingly across the board, our staff would say that was the case. For some less or more than others, but overall there was that time saving aspect. One of my favorite results we had that I always like to highlight is we also would ask folks in the pilot, when they are using ChatGPT in their work and they're getting different types of outputs, what are the types of corrections they need to make to those outputs to actually make them usable in their day-to-day? And we had a couple different options folks could select, and there were definitely cases of people noting bias or hallucinations or factual inaccuracies. And it was really great to see staff, catch those and note them for us and identify them. But across the board, the most common type of correction that people would need to make to their outputs would be providing their own subject matter expertise to the output to make it actually usable in the context of their work. And that's something that we've reinforced, throughout this pilot, but then, additional exploration of AI tools is that anyone using these tools should use them as a tool. Ultimately, they have to be responsible for their work product and what comes out. And there's ways these tools can be helpful, and there's ways that they can sometimes lead you astray. And being able to provide your own expertise and nuance to that output is really what allows it to drive the most value. And so that was something that we saw throughout the pilot, something that was reported to us by our participants, and again, was one of those key takeaways. I'll put the full report in the chat for folks, but really was, only was possible with folks like Kelly, who actually gave us that feedback as well. So we really appreciated all the participation.
So I bet you got to learn a lot about procurement, Harrison. Which is an exciting field, as we've already said. So it sounds like a great idea that although you had 150 out of the 80,000 employees that you have, that you did go across a broad spectrum of individuals. So not just like early adopters, but additionally folks who are like, I'm not sure if this is awesome or not. And so I'm entering it as a skeptic. So that's really smart, and to gather that feedback. So Kelly, I'm curious, what did you have? You must have had obviously people from your department. So what would it look like, say, for a buyer in your office to use this tool on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So we actually have a new deputy secretary here, Frank McNally, who has engaged all of our staff in using AI, which is really great. And we have Harrison's group in on that as well. Frank actually did a presentation on what AI is and isn't. The great comment he used was, AI is not going to take your job, but people who can use AI will take your job. And I think that was a wonderful way to frame it. And then he challenged everyone to come up with what they wanted their use case to be. And he had them present that to the group. There were 7 presentations. We are actually moving forward with all of those use cases. In several of them, we didn't need any additional help. It was stuff that either Copilot or ChatGPT can already do. In other cases, we're going to engage with Harrison's team to design like a little bit more of a complex tool. I would say far and away the biggest way, I use it already, and some of our folks are using Copilot, which has now become more available, is to write specs and come up with good questions to ask both using agencies and also vendors. So coming up with RFI questions prior to a solicitation, coming up with good questions to ask agencies so you can spec based on their designs, right? I think question asking is an art, and AI can really pull from the vast interwebs that I don't understand as a non-IT person and come up with amazing questions that you never would have thought to ask. And then I think to your point earlier, Harrison, it's adding that subject matter expertise, right? So it gives us that bucket of questions, and then we refine it to fit our situation. And it has been a tremendous tool that is saving a ton of time.
That's great. Thank you for those examples. Harrison, I'm curious, do you consider, or does the state consider AI in the same bucket as software? Because I've heard some folks say no, some other folks say yes. Certainly when you contract with someone, whether it's Microsoft or OpenAI, there are terms and conditions, there's a contract in place. So again, so is AI in that same sort of software bucket?
I think it's a little bit of a kind of gray area right now. And uh, to maybe frame it a little differently, I will talk to our teams a lot about how they need to have kind of a proactive and a reactive approach to how AI is being introduced, right? There's ways where we can be very intentional about, maybe we want to have X, type of generative AI tool, and we might take X, procurement approach to doing so and can work it through our standard terms and, security reviews and any of the pieces we need to set that up for success. But there's so many ways right now that our teams and staff are engaging with AI that they have less control over, right? If you use a search engine these days, it's really hard to use that search engine without engaging with AI search outputs that come to you. We have to think about when we do, our Commonwealth security awareness and phishing training, right? Phishing attacks are becoming much better because it's much easier for folks to make deceptive content using AI tools that are out there, right? And so I think, operating in a context of there are some tools that are like very discreetly generative AI, these kind of large language model, multi-purpose generative AI tools like OpenAI's ChatGPT, Gemini by Google, Claude by Anthropic, Copilot, but then there's a lot of our existing software that is introducing different levels of AI tools, explicitly or not. And there's a lot of places where we don't have control over the terms, but AI is kind of happening upon us. I think being able to make sure there's that awareness and salience for our staff is helpful across the board. And especially when it comes to procurement, I think understanding that, regardless of if it's a new contract or a renewal or something, in between, that a lot of our software right now sees more of an opportunity to leverage data in ways that introduces AI functionality, and that you should have kind of an AI aware approach to any of those contract negotiations or procurements that you're doing. So, is AI all software, right? I think there's a couple different ways you can hash it, but more to me, the point is that to set your agencies and teams up for success, they have to understand that, we want to be intentional about the ways we can control it, but there's a lot of places it's going to be continually introduced, and we want to try to be as kind of responsive to that as possible as well.
And from the procurement side of things, our attorneys here in the Commonwealth have always considered this type of software purchase to be a materials purchase, which is very interesting to me. But that's how we consider it on the procurement end. So.
Yeah. Which has always been interesting at the university that I worked at. It was always considered in the same way, and it was like, oh, but is it really, right? Because it's not a widget, but yet it's kind of considered that way. So we have a question for, I think, Dr. Miller. Let's see, did that come? Let's see if we have it. Dr. Waters has a question for Harrison.
Oh,
Please.
yes, if I can. So Harrison, last year, Microsoft Pilot was banned by the U.S. House of Representatives for official work. And of course, then that got reversed this year, obviously. And, the concerns around data, security, privacy, et cetera, for official work was sort of happening, I'm assuming, during your pilot. I'm curious as to what your thoughts were as to the risks presented during that time as you navigated, how to go forward and so on and so forth.
Yeah, great question. And to split just apart some of the different tools that we've started to work with, we had our ChatGPT pilot, which kicked off in early 2024. And then just as of this summer, we've started to do some access to Copilot Chat, which is one of the Copilot products available, and only became available to government cloud Microsoft users as of this summer. Across the board, we have restricted and provided guidance to staff on not using sensitive data for a lot of their AI usage. And I think that comes from, both this is kind of a new technology environment for folks. And also a lot of that sensitive data often is around high leverage work. And there's definitely a learning aspect of how people engage with these tools, prompt, use the outputs, make sure you're actually reviewing them. And it's better to go through some of those learning curves, again, not with our, our most critical information, right? I also think that, there's a lot that is changing with these tools. And I think when we have started to pilot and give initial access to teams in a very intentional way, giving them training with resources, it's really helped us see our blind spots in terms of the types of resources and trainings other folks need. We can't prevent all the ways that AI might show up for all of our staff. And so trying to also kind of work with them to get them access to then use that as an opportunity to learn from a enterprise level, what are the things we can provide to them? We think over the long term definitely provides us to operate in a kind of more responsible and secure space with these tools. That being said, though, we have been very iterative, and we haven't had kind of any approach yet of giving everyone access all at once to any of these AI systems.
So
Kelly,
oh, I'm sorry, Carrie, go ahead.
yeah, no, I have a question for Kelly in the pilot. I'm wondering, Kelly, what you ran into on terms and conditions with OpenAI. I mean, they've got to have given you some heartburn at somewhere along that process. They're just not flexible, where you'd want them to be.
I actually have not dealt with that too much because we have a team of lawyers who have taken care of are on that front. So fortunately, I should say, for me, I can't speak to that, but we defer. We have not only our procurement attorneys here, but also OA, our Office of Administration, which is where all of our technology policy lives, their attorneys as well. So it has been very much been a joint effort from them to get us to use the product.
Did they customize anything for you off of their commercial,
Yeah,
stuff,
there's always, and Harrison, I don't know if you know more about this than I do, but I do know that because of certain really fun things in Pennsylvania state constitution, we always have to do a certain level of customization with terms and conditions. So I assume that those took place, but I'm not sure if they did if they had other concessions for Pennsylvania or not. Do you know, Harrison?
I believe that we were able to work with them on a degree of customized terms, and also say that, so Pennsylvania was the first, I believe, US government to have an agreement with them for their ChatGPT enterprise product. I think from our end, we were really motivated by this question of, there's a lot of AI webinars, but right, what does it actually look like for our staff to get to use these tools? And so there is, I think, some motivation on both sides to try to figure out what our pathway was forward. But to kind of, in the sentiment of your question, I think a challenge continually is that as more and more organizations have AI terms, and especially as those terms begin to appear with vendors that already have large footprints, right? It introduces some, I think, friction points around how do we make sure that we are doing our proper diligence and protecting our data and information appropriately.
Well, and the more public agencies that contract with these vendors, the more opportunity the rest of us will have to get the kind of favorable terms that we need, right? Because we're not the first person doing it, even though Pennsylvania was, but we have many that have gone before us. So it's not a surprise, I guess I would say, to these suppliers on if we can't have a specific term and condition in the contract. So we do have a question in the chat. I'll open it up to our panelists. It says, when using an AI software, should verbiage be included in responses to proposals for transparency to procurement teams?
So is this a question of, should we ask people submitting proposals to tell us whether or not they've used AI to craft that proposal? Is that what this question is asking?
Yes.
Okay. So I have heard states have this policy, and my question to them is why? So if they tell you they used it, what are you going to do differently in your review that you wouldn't have done if they said, if they didn't use AI? And in talking with another state about this, actually at a NASPO event recently, they actually, I think that they were looking for verification that the vendor knew about the terms and conditions and had truly read everything. But yes, if you have something you're going to do with that information, absolutely ask them to disclose it. But if you just want to know that they use AI or not, spoiler alert, they probably all did. And really, what's interesting to me is as more and more of these groups are using AI, especially for more rote proposals, really what it's going to come down to is how do they differentiate themselves in their expertise and their previous experience, right? And also the staffing resources they assign. So the overall approach might get more and more uniform as folks are using AI to respond to rote proposals. And we're really going to have to start looking more at those differentiators that with the vendor rather than their approach, because their approach might start to get really, really similar. Sorry, I went off on my own tangent there, Julia.
Kelly, you have a really good point. I actually had that same conversation with the Center for Procurement Excellence, the RFP doctors. Side note, we have a webinar coming up on November 11th with them to discuss Q3. So everyone please sign up for that. But aside from that, I'd said if, let's say everyone, all suppliers are going to use AI in writing their proposal. Well, all procurement will use AI to issue RFPs. All suppliers will use AI in their responses. Then what's going to be the differentiator, right? And funny enough, their answer was people. People will be, because it'll be the teams that they're putting on the project, et cetera. So I just thought that was kind of ironic since there's going to be so much AI incorporated. And I agree with you. To what end do we want to know where AI was involved in the writing of a proposal? Because, yeah, spoiler, a lot of it, and kind of by everyone, right? So that's a really good point. Let's see, do we have any other questions there? So question to all of you. Carrie, did you have something for I ask?
Well, I answered a question that was in the questions and then it went over to answered, so it disappeared. But it was for Harrison. So Harrison, if you look in the answered part, you'll see your question. I'm sorry.
Let's take a look. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything there. Do you remember what the question was, or you're saying it's already been answered? Or do we want the group to know?
I
the
wrote
question?
an answer. It says, when employees input specific organizational data or proprietary data into tools like ChatGPT or other LLMs, how can an organization guarantee that data isn't being retained, used to train future models, or exposed through indirect data leaks? That's a great question.
It is. And, I think a challenge and a question that is, as with a lot of AI topics, there's parts of it that I think are, expressed directly through AI, but there's also aspects that I think apply to a lot of our tech environment or software generally. And I would say this is definitely one of them. We continually do what we can from a, user standpoint, a contractual standpoint, and our, IT security and privacy practice standpoint to try to ensure as much fidelity to this as possible. And this is something we're continuing to learn how to best, enforce all of that as we go. Data privacy and security is, a foundational part of any of our Commonwealth terms and work we do with technology organizations. So across a couple different levels, do what we can to try to enforce this. But, I don't think there is, a perfect answer on that front.
I will agree to disagree. I will.
Let's go. All right.
I am
Counterpoint.
an independent AI auditor. And so what we would recommend you do is to write into your contract that you have the right to come in and audit, whether that is periodically or at the end. And that should be done by an independent third party. Now, here's the trick. Who pays for that? You pay for that? You're going to have them pay for that. Some states are now getting to that point where they require routine third-party independent audits that go to their attorneys general on a periodic basis. So maybe in that case, they would automatically pay for that. So the payment part is still an open-ended question to me, but I think there is a cottage industry of independent AI auditing popping up.
And I would also endorse that comment. And if you are able from the budget operational negotiation standpoint to advocate for that, like I also would recommend that. So appreciate that comment.
Yeah, no, really good point. And going back to the terms and conditions of these contracts, Kelly, you had mentioned that ultimately it is the supplier's responsibility to read the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's terms and conditions. And whether they do it with a person reading it or with AI reading it, and they agree to those, they agree to them in whatever fashion they were read, right? You can't later go back as, not picking on suppliers, but pick on suppliers for a second and say, oh, it was my AI tool that read that and I didn't realize that, indemnification was going to be an issue. It's like, yeah, you're accountable for your work, right? Harrison, I think you had made that point earlier that in the end, or Kelly, you did, that we're each accountable for the work that we produce with whatever tools we utilize. Okay, so let's see. Harrison, thank you for that information. That is really helpful. So a question to our 4 panelists. So I had said Kelly and Harrison earlier about lessons learned. So Carrie and Giselle and Kelly and Harrison, what are additional lessons learned? Folks are, again, this is, even though we hear about it every day in whether it's social media, the news, whatever it might be about AI, what are some pitfalls that you've seen occur? What are some lessons learned that our other participants can learn? Anyone, feel free.
I'll let Dr. Miller go, and then I have something from the very, very practical frontline staff point of view.
Okay, good, because mine's a little more high level. All right, so I can tell you what I'm working on right now for research. I'm bothered by the fact that there are multiple types of AI. So we have commercial off-the-shelf AI that's really turnkey and pretty much any professional can use it. And then you move up in level of complexity from there. So there's, like Harrison was saying earlier, there's stuff that's all coming and all of a sudden like AI shows up in a tool. Before that there wasn't, and now there is. So that's like the next level of complexity. And then we're seeing where you can buy an agent, like all of a sudden you have this like thing you can buy and it'll do agent stuff for you. And that's the whole tool. Like that's what the tool does. That's the next level of complexity. Or you can build a custom tool that has multiple agents talking to each other, doing lots of really fancy things. And so this escalatory level of AI complexity and interactivity requires different levels of AI governance. It requires a really deep understanding of the AI value chain and all the real risks that go into that and how you mitigate those. If you're a buyer and you're in the procurement process, how do you navigate that when you're writing your solicitation, when you're evaluating one vendor to the other, when you're writing how you're going to monitor that thing, what metrics you use for one versus the other one on the bookend of all the way out here. Like, so that's the research I'm working on, because as we start to upskill in our procurement domain. So when we talk about upskilling AI, you have to upskill customer care, you upskill marketing, you have to, well, I'm only worried about upskilling procurement. This is where I'm at right now. I've got to understand how that escalates and what we need to know for as procurement professionals so we can upskill to know how to do that job right. So this is a little more bigger picture though.
Thank you.
Sure.
I think the thing we're wrestling with is that our seasoned staff, and this kind of might be a good spinoff of what Dr. Miller was just saying, our seasoned staff are the best people to use this tool. It helps them do their job much more quickly. It helps get a better product. When you give a newbie this, they don't know enough. They can't ask good questions. They don't know what's a hallucination or not. So really for our truly new people who are new to procurement and all our myriad of policies and procedures, the best use of it is like simple proofing for them, right? Like write me an email about this, but when you ask them to craft IFB specs, they don't know enough to know what's crap and what's actually good, and then put their own Pennsylvania spin on it or their SME spin on it for whatever we're purchasing. So I think that's something and our short-term solution has been, hey, for these higher level tools, like let's give it to our managers and our associate managers, but our commodity specialists who are like the I don't want to say the lower level people, but the mid-level people, we probably need to be really careful about who we give this tool to, because it could actually do some damage. Or we have to, really proof their work more than we would have to normally, because we don't know where the tool has taken them. And I would say really good specific queries. We've learned very quickly how important that is to getting good responses out of it.
Kelly, that's a fantastic point, that we would think that, oh, maybe you want sort of newer folks to the profession. And by newer, we could maybe say younger, right? Who are digital natives to use these tools, but they may not have the foundational knowledge of procurement to then use this tool for procurement. So that's a really good point. And Becca, thank you for your comment that in the Q&A box. Appreciate that. Giselle, did you have something as well?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to end with, I think we're, Dr. Miller and I consistently wrestle with the notion that our skill set, our magic sauce is really teaching how to improve processes to buy AI, and the risks around AI in general, and how solicitations should be modified in order to buy it responsibly, ethically, and so on and so forth. So we come at it from that third party independent view and angle on, is this a great product for you? Is it really? Okay, then let's look at both the hazards and the benefits. But we're in different ways. She's doing research, really gauging the use case scenario in depth of all these different levels of AI. I'm also preparing some training, really trying to go for the audiences in different levels of capacity, as Kelly was mentioning. It seems to me that we're landing because we're at such the beginning of the education portion of how to do this really well. The cottage industry around auditing AI has now been developing for 5, 6, 7 years. But at the intersection of AI and procurement, and responsible AI procurement, and rather procurement of AI, not doing it with AI, buying AI, and teaching how to buy responsibly. It's like, teaching a toddler how to choose the correct toy for what he wants to, accomplish for the day. That's a terrible analogy. Anyway.
It's a great point. We know what you mean, right? You have to ride a tricycle maybe before you get to a two-wheeler. So
Right.
actually, Becca has a question, and that is that NASPO is partners with the National Governors Association and the National Council for State Legislators. So what would you want elected officials to know about what states need to do or buy to position them for success using AI? That's to any of our panelists.
Train their people. Money. Give them money to train their people.
Yeah. Decide that the budget is important enough, budget and time to train and educate. If you want to do this right, this is a long game. This is not a short game. Don't buy the latest sexy dress, please, before you even go to the dance. Let's determine, what the steps are. And so that's what we do. Absolutely, I would agree with Dr. Miller.
Great point. Kelly Harrison?
Go ahead, Harrison, first.
I would say in a similar vein of there's a lot of flashy AI things out there. A lot of, I think, the best success I think you can find in any AI work is when you're, taking it as an opportunity to really interrogate that, problem solution aspect of this. And is this the right tool to get at what we're trying to solve? And AI comes in a lot of different forms. There's a lot of information about it. It's moving really fast, and I think it can be very easy to get away from that problem solution mindset. And often the solutions or the things that are needed, if AI is the right thing that's chosen, it's built on having really strong fundamentals from the teams that are implementing the training, the data, a lot of kind of other aspects of the work. And investing in AI is not just, investing in that end technology thing that might be there, but also all of the systems and structures that allow us to set this work up for success and actually get at whatever you're trying to solve. So I think it would just be to advocate that, being able to solve problems with AI is also making sure that we're investing in all the pieces that work is built on.
And I was just going to say, for states who really want their workforce to start down this path, I would say the seeing is believing, right? Last year, we had an all hands day with our BOP staff. There's 90 of them. We talked about AI, and it was like a third, a third, a third. A third was like, I love this, sign me up. A third was like, I don't know. And the third was like, it's going to take my job. I hate it. I'm never doing this, right? Now, a year later, once they've seen it and been in demos, I would say it is probably like 3/4 of them love it and want to use it, and 1/4 of them are either apathetic or still don't want to use it. So because we had that pilot, because the money was there, to your point earlier, right? The money was there for us to do this pilot and see it. Now everyone's excited and is thinking of these great new ideas to make the work better and faster and all the great things.
Okay, but wait, you guys did one more thing that you didn't say out loud in very specific terms. You used good change management. That is one thing I see a lot of companies not do. They just think it's like some magical like unicorn flies in and fixes like, I don't know why they're doing that. It's still a digital transformation. It still requires the usual good change management. And everything you said, you checked in every month. You helped them understand. You cared about the people that signed up and why they signed up. Like, all of your stuff was just good change management. That is so important.
I really appreciate that you called that out, because I think that is a huge part of this, and where I think I've seen some organizations struggle a little bit is there's so much context setting for a lot of this AI work that starts and lives deep in technical offices. But because of how available these systems are, you need a lot of those folks who can work cross agencies and teams and be in a position to do so. And I think a huge part of our success with that pilot and some of this work is, whether it's from our generative AI, governing board that oversees a lot of this work, or this pilot, we had our procurement teams involved on the onset. We had our HR teams involved. We had a lot of these different pieces to lead that change management effort, even if we don't always name it. So I agree and appreciate you calling it out specifically.
So I just had the opportunity to attend my first NASPO conference for state chief information officers. And it was so simplistic, but so true, in that a new software, yes, that is change management, but it's really change management is about people and explaining to folks what we're doing, why we're doing it, how it's going to impact them, and the benefit to whatever institution it is. So kudos, Carrie, thank you, and Harrison, for pointing out the change management aspect of this brave new world with AI. So for our panelists, any final comments? Well, I have a final comment, and that is that Dr. Waters and Dr. Miller graciously participated in an upcoming Pulse podcast talking about this very topic that will be released, I believe it's mid-December. So I would say to everyone, listen in. There'll be some great information. So I want to thank our presenters today, Carrie, Giselle, Kelly, and Harrison, for the valuable information they've shared and for working with NASPO to bring it to you. As a reminder, this webinar qualifies for 1 hour of your continuing education credits, and to receive it, just please fill out the very brief survey when you exit this webinar. The webinar has been recorded and will be available for viewing on NASPO's YouTube page, and all the questions have been that were entered into the chat or Q&A box have been saved. Lastly, please register for our upcoming webinar, November 11th, Procurement Currents Q3 with the Center of Procurement Excellence, and check out the latest episodes of NASPO's Pulse podcast. Both can be found at naspo.org. Thanks again for attending today's webinar, and have a great day.